Good morning. We're going to be doing questions and answers. So if any of you have questions, we're going to need to use our mic. So I'm using the wireless mic at the moment. But welcome, everybody. Beautiful day, beautiful souls. Somebody walked in this morning and said, "I just love everybody here." We all laugh. We're all laughing and smiling, and not because it's the healthy thing to do, as Shanti told us last night, but because it's just such a joyful place to be. So thank you all for being here. Let's start with a prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda, saints of all paths, we bow to you all with the deepest gratitude, with the fullness of our hearts. We want to follow thee into the light, into the joy, and into freedom. We are thy children. Om, peace, amen. Again, thank you for coming and being here this morning. It's an opportunity that we don't get very frequently because Shanti only comes up and visits periodically. But down in Palo Alto, where she lives, and there with Lakshmi, is our center, big center in Palo Alto. And what they do is this spiritual question and answer on a semi-regular basis. You said about every 3 or 4 months, something like that, which is a lovely opportunity to hear the wisdom of these teachings through a very wise teacher, through Shanti, who has been on this path for decades now and has a great deal of experience, but also to share together in the, in the group idea and the larger view of the world and of life through the eyes of these masters and through the teachings that we have through Paramhansa Yogananda and then Swami Kriyananda. And it's a different perspective than most of the world has to share these teachings and to follow the path of yoga, follow the path of self-realization, and to be in the world. We are not renunciates. We're not hiding away in our cave or in our convent, in our cell, and just focusing on our prayer and our relationship with God. We are all in the world. We're all called to be actively participating in every part of life, with our families, with our friends, with our jobs, with our pets, with our neighbors, with everything that is happening in this world. That's this age of energy. That's what we are being asked to do as devotees. Obviously, it's for our growth. If it wasn't for our growth, then we would be someplace else. But we're here to be channels for that light into the world, but we're also here to grow in our understanding and our awareness as we move along in this path of self-realization. And as we do that, questions come up. How do we do that? What's the best way to do that? What's the attitude of a devotee that I can tune into that will help me? And so that's what this is about. Shanti will help direct us in that way with spiritual questions. We're not going to put any big, strong parameters on those questions. The point, of course, is not to get into nitty-gritty personal details about things that we're challenged with, but about how can these spiritual teachings help us move forward in the direction that we want to go, which is towards more expansion, more compassion, more awareness, more understanding, all of those things that we all want. So Shanti is going to be up here, and we will have a mic ready. We also, if somebody is tuning in online, good morning to anybody that's there online. Thank you. Cindy's saying right now there's 2 people online with us. So, now it's 3. So if there's a question from somebody online, Cindy will also share that, and Shanti will help us to explore those questions. I think without further ado, free music first. There was a song requested of Cindy, so she's going to come up and share with us.
Oh, I wasn't mic'd either. You weren't mic'd. I wasn't mic'd either.
Oh,
We heard you just.
we need you to sing again. Is it on now? Somebody mentioned something about what a great time to do Q&As because we need to sort of be here to transform the energy in the world. It was said much more simply. I heard it, wasn't said to me. Then I said to Cindy, what about music? And she said, what? And this song just came to mind. Because it's a fun song, but it's so profound. The words are just so extraordinary. You can never get them the first time through, but those of you who are shaking your heads, yes, you've heard these words many times. Swamiji just had an incredible knack for that, no matter what the tone of his song. And he wrote just like this. We wanted to have fun and be light, but we couldn't think of any more profound way of saying what we need in the world, particularly right now. Although I say particularly right now, then you read history. These kinds of things have been going on again and again and again. So anyway, as we were saying last night or yesterday in conversation, I think we have to get to higher yuga, Satya Yuga. I always pray to Master that when I have to reincarnate, it'll be in Satya Yuga. That's what I'm hoping for. You know, let me just preface this morning by saying, because thank you, Lorna, that was such a great intro to this whole thing. I really appreciated it. This is an extraordinary way to share the teachings, not just from me, but from you. This is a group process that we go through here, because every single question that anybody asks, everybody learns from. And we see that all the time. There is absolutely nothing that can't be asked here today. Sometimes it is personal, but even if it's personal to you, the answers can always be expansive and in truth for all. So don't hesitate to ask any questions that you feel comfortable asking. Anything about the path or just this whole issue of, because Lorna was speaking so beautifully about that, I wouldn't have thought to start like that, but it was perfect. It's a unique experience that we're having, living our spiritual life so deeply. So many of us are so dedicated. I mean, I'm looking around, many of you, we've been together for years on this path. We've seen each other again and again. We're serious. We mean it about hoping to get free, and yet we're doing it right out in the world. It's a very different moment than being cloistered or just the way many people have had to live over the ages. So it's challenging for us to be in the world and yet not of the world, to live in the world and yet still not try and be tempted by the devil. Perfect song here. So anyway, so we can just start anytime. Anybody who has a question, you just raise your hand. Lorna or somebody will share the speaker's mic, and we'll start here.
There you go.
Thank you. Shanti, so I might be breaking, no, I'm sure I'm not breaking any rules here, but it is from my own personal life. I've noticed since having open heart surgery that I am susceptible to a sudden overwhelming grief at seeing, reading, or hearing about a person or groups of people's tragedy. I try to draw my energy to the point between the eyebrows, and in time that does help. Just as a person would close their eyes in an action movie during a scary scene, which doesn't faze me, I close my eyes to a scene that invokes deep, overwhelming empathy in me. I can control the emotional response by closing my eyes, and that helps. My question is, what do you think is going on? And do you have any advice on the subject related to healing and wellness in Dwapar?
That's a wonderful question, topic, really. And I think there's two very meaningful answers for that. I'm sure there are many more, but two that just came. The first is, I wish I'd known this question was coming, because there's amazing articles. I told you, don't tell me. Why did you listen to me? There are now articles that very specifically relate to the how do they call it in science? They don't call it the feelings of the heart. This is not emotions that we're talking about. We're talking about what actually goes on in the energy that is the heart, in the muscle specifically and physiologically, that the heart is actually as smart in many ways as the brain. Now, I don't have all the science right here because I would have to have read it right before this, but the question that you're asking, and part of what brought up or led to the research, is people who have had heart transplants. Because people have heart transplants, and I think this is something similar, not a different point, but the same point. They started finding that they changed dramatically, and very often, as we began to know this and people looked into it, they could trace new things that were coming up in people's lives back to the donor. So, for instance, I read a true account, but this is all through science. This is what led me to read it, of a woman who received a heart and suddenly, I'll just shorten a little, but developed an interest in hiking in the outdoors, which she had never had before. And she was able to, and then she was drawn to all of these different and unique places. And one time in the story, she was drawn to a very specific point in hiking in the Grand Canyon, sort of off the beaten path. And I mean, it's just amazing, but this is a true story. She gets to that point, very isolated, and there's a man there, and he's deep in contemplation, sort of meditation, but not as we would think of it. And in the end, I'll just cut to the chase, that was a place that he and his wife always went. And now this is the woman who had received his wife's heart, and they met there, and ultimately they married. I mean, that's what it's like. Gita just went, isn't that amazing? Now, I've read many accounts like that, but it was a beautiful story, actually. And she was just being drawn to places, but had no idea why. So there's an inherent intelligence, is really what I'm saying, and a consciousness within the heart itself. So when we do different things to the heart, I didn't even know you had had open heart surgery, but now I do. But we are, this is also fascinating. I'm gonna diverge a little bit in a minute. Anyway, it's just simply fascinating. So we're going in and we're rearranging your heart, either a valve or arteries or whatever you had done. And we are affecting the intelligence and consciousness that resides in your heart. So then it changes you. It just changes you. Now, that's one part of the answer. The other thing that I would say is this, because the issue is still the same. We don't want to walk around, we don't want to live the rest of this life being that emotional, if we can help it, because no matter how you got there, it's taking you in the wrong direction. So I just share a little story with you that perhaps you've heard, because you've heard a lot of my stories. But when I was still a nurse and I was working an emergency room in Southern California with my then husband, who he's since then passed, but he was a physician and I was a nurse. And I was just thinking about what to do with the rest of my life, because the question of being a doctor had come up, but I was leaning towards being a clinical psychologist. This is all pre the moment with Master on the beach. But anyway, that almost doesn't matter. I was a nurse and he was a doctor. We used to go to a hospital there called Mission Bay Hospital, right outside of San Diego on Mission Bay. And we would work these long shifts together. So his were longer though. So then I would go and rest and study because I was taking some classes at UCSD at the time. Anyway, that's important. So I would be in the doctor's rooms studying, and Barry, that was my first husband, Barry, not current Barry, but I have an affinity towards Barry's, but he would keep working because his shifts were longer than mine. But while we were working together, this woman came in, and she had a vaginal infection. And we examined her together because he was the doctor, I was the nurse. We did studies. And she had, on the slide, you could see this infection called Gardnerella. It's very common. And at the time, there was a question about whether it was a sexually transmitted disease or not. Turns out it is, but it's not a dangerous one like syphilis or gonorrhea, but it is sexually transmitted. So we together treated her. I mean, he wrote the prescriptions and I sort of signed her out. And about at least an hour later, maybe longer, she came to me. She didn't come to me, but thoughts of her came. And I felt that she was struggling. I just kept feeling that. And the more time that went by, her pain in me increased. And I was just, this is weird. I am not psychic. None of this stuff this is not common. I'm just telling you, because I told you these stories last night, and now this is not me. But anyway, I went out to the parking lot. I was compelled to go out there, and she's sitting, now it's about 2 hours later, sobbing in her car, sobbing with such shame and remorse. Now this was the 70s, the late 70s, at having this possibly sexually transmitted disease. It was just so painful for her. So I just stayed with her for a while in the parking lot, held her, really tried to help her, just like, but for the grace of God, there goes many of us. And it did help her. It was good. I come back in, I go back to the room, I'm studying, and suddenly, I know that I have a vaginal infection. I can feel it. It was the weirdest thing. So I say to Barry, you're gonna have to examine me. Something's going on when you're done working. He does, and I have Gardnerella. This is a true story. So coming back to your heart, believe it or not, very quickly that day, I realized that if I'm not careful, I will take on every condition that happens to me. This was after the experience with Master. Now the whole story is just coming. I already know I'm going to go to medical school. I don't know where or anything, but I know I'm going. And I just said to myself, Shanti, this could be a cancer. This could be anything. This is their karma. Your job is to support them in the best way you can so that they can find their way through it, but not to get into feeling it's a mistake or it's so sad or it's tragic. It is tragic in a certain way. It is, but not, if we get involved emotionally in that, we become part of the problem, not the spiritual solution. And that has saved my life countless times. It was such a perfect, of course, divinely planned experience for me to have and an awareness for me to get. Then all these years later, how many years is it? From 77 until now, 50, is that right? 50, almost. A lot of years, yeah, later. And how many patients I've been with how many conditions. But I have been able to serve them so much better by staying in my spine and perfectly clear that that's not mine. I don't need to own it. And I can only help them by staying stronger. And I feel if you can practice that, because I know, it's funny, but Maury told us a story last night of when you got your puppy and you just couldn't stay in the pound. And I've had that experience. I can't walk in. I think I would take every dog home with me. Every animal, it's like, please just open the cages and let me take them all out of it. You know, I can't stand to see them and they're crying, and it really tugs on me. So I related to the story that she told us, how you said, okay, that's the one, but I'm leaving. And I got it, but it's not the best response for your soul. So the more that you can realize the truth, even the dogs, because I've had to reckon with this many times, as I'm sure you have, now being a dog owner for the first time, and now Max is 4, and he just has my heart. He's just this fabulous little guy, and I realized I don't care what body he's in. He's just a soul that's come to me for kind of, I have to take care of him and love him and be there with him. And yet, when I'm needed to leave, which he hates, the night before he just starts sitting like this. I haven't even started packing yet, and Max knows I'm leaving, and he gets so sad. And if I reacted to that, well, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be anywhere, because he only wants me to be with him. And you know, animals are like that. It's an instinct, it's not. So they're just happy when you're there, and he's desperately sad when I'm not. And then I come home and he does all these flips in the air and he jumps around. And then 5 minutes later, they're just very in the moment. And I think in a way we need to get that. Always we need to get that when we're with other people who are other beings who are suffering. It is karmic, and it's not a horrible thing. And it's really hard to describe that and still say, keep your heart open to everyone. But I don't know if you can feel this, but I'm actually very compassionate with people, very. And yet, there's a part of me that knows that whatever they need to go through, they need to go through. And Max needs to go through my leaving. Many of my clients need to go through, I mean, everything. Even just sitting with you to stare, because I was talking about it last night, maybe some of you weren't here, doesn't matter, but a very dear friend who was diagnosed with a very bad cancer. But I can be with him and be strong, and that helps him. When I'm strong in my spine, that helps him much more than if I was there doing this, oh my God, you poor thing, this is tragic. And he knows, I know, it's terribly sad looking at facing the end of your life much more quickly than you thought you would, or pain or whatever. But anyway, I don't know if all of that's helpful, but it's a good question. It's a good thing to contemplate, and it's an important thing to contemplate, because otherwise we're forgetting that karma, reincarnation, and dharma, is that what it was? The karmic blueprint. It's real. That's real. And people have to go through these things. So we do a much better job if we help them. Even as odd as it is, if we can rise above it and share a moment of love with those animals, that's a great gift. So it's just to try and bring it back. Yeah. Thank you for asking that, though.
So my question is about annoyance.
Annoyance?
And I have 3 examples of things that kind of affect me in that regard. So one is when I'm driving along and someone is behind me wanting to go faster than the speed limit. And they're upset with me because I'm not doing it. The second example is aesthetics. I really like things to be aesthetically oriented and, in my opinion, very beautiful and things like that. Not everyone thinks like that. So it's annoying to me to be around their detritus.
That would be Lakshmi.
And the third thing is when organizations or websites or something like that kind of are not like what I think they should be. Because as my brother used to say, if everyone would do just like I want them to do, the world would be a better place. So anyway, that's what I want.
What's your question?
Oh, my question is, I realize that, that annoyance is somehow something I need to work on, but I don't quite understand what.
Okay. That's almost the answer, but I wanted to make sure that we had the same question. You might have been asking me, how do I make that happen?
That's the second part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, you're mine.
Okay. Yeah. I imagine there's not a person in this room who can't relate to what you're talking about. It may not be the freeway situation or any of your exact examples, but yeah, these egos are troublesome, aren't they? And I mean that really. We are such essentially egoic beings as long as we're here and in the body. And I often say this, but it's really true. It's not just like a little giveaway line. Or throwaway. The ego is so good at what it does. It's just so incredibly good. And even when we know a fair amount about truth, most of us in this room probably does. So we've gotten much closer to it, but still we find ourselves working out in our minds why in this situation, we know or they're wrong, or if only it could be other than what it is. And there's no way around there's only one way out of that, let me just say. There is only one way out, and that is to continue to move forward, not nursing those issues. And I mean this because you're saying them and we're laughing, and mostly we're laughing because we can all relate to it. But as Swamiji always said, the minute you see yourself, the instant, Master said this as well, in his discipleship notes many times, that at the first moment that you can catch yourself going into whatever it is, like this, that irritation on the freeway, is the best opportunity we have to stop it. And it really matters. I mean, even the freeway example gets a lot more complex when we're talking about businesses. And what if we actually see a way that the Sangha could be run better, or this business would work better if, and who would argue with you that it's not? I could even make a case from Patanjali's teachings that keeping order and having things look beautiful, that's a higher spiritual aspiration. So in the right setting, at the right time, the argument that you're making is spiritually correct, but it's all of the emotion that goes with it. It's the blame, it's the judgment, it's everything else that comes with it, which we can all relate to, that just takes us so far off of our path. And it's just simply a continual struggle. This was one of Master's quotes that from last night that I couldn't quite find. At one point I was looking for it, when he basically said, life is a continuous struggle. Those are his exact words. What came after that is what I can't remember. But basically he was saying, life is nothing less than a continuous struggle, kind of good over evil, lack of ego over ego, whatever words he used. But this is what he's saying. We have to keep working continuously. When we see ourselves getting angry, getting irritated, sitting back and judging and justifying the judgment, it really would be better if they set the chairs up differently. And here's why. And I'm going to be irritated. Why are they not listening to me when I tell them how it should be? Don't they see that it's endless. It's endless. And it's all ego as long as we have an emotion wrapped around it. It's not ego if you came in one day and you said to Lorna, you know, I have a suggestion. I've been looking at the temple and I was thinking that maybe perfect. Anything after that, not perfect. And as much as we would like to make it okay, we can. It just takes us longer to get free, is all. It just, you know, upstairs in the kitchen here, this blew me away this morning. I mean, it was very sad for me, actually. There's a list. Somebody put up a list that Swamiji wrote. What would he consider a true renunciate? Did you read that list yet? Wow. I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, I'm so far from all of that. Almost every point. I mean, it was like, I do that, I do that, I do that. But you know, it's truth. He's writing that, and it's truth. What we all want, and maybe some of us don't really want it this lifetime. Maybe we're not really ready to be done yet. Fair enough. We'll come back. That's okay. We've been doing that. And I remember when I had the thought, I literally remember all those years ago when I was living in Southern California, and I was just starting to learn these teachings, and people were saying, if you do this, this, and this, you never have to come back. And I was a fun-loving, energetic, bright 20-something, and I remember looking at Barry and saying, why wouldn't everyone want to come back? This is so much fun. And I meant it. So I'm not judging people, but not everybody is really ready to be free. Really, we're not. It terrifies us at times. So, I mean, we have to acknowledge that. Do we really want to be a true renunciate? And it's a very serious question for us to ask ourselves, because probably, I hate to say this, But probably, if we're honest, many of us are not ready. We're not. We really don't want to give up. I was saying in something that I was talking at a week or two ago that one of the things that I saw when I was practicing medicine so much is that and I've helped so many people pass. I mean, so many, I don't know. I could say a minimum of 100, but maybe more. You know, that's what people do when you're a nurse, an ICU nurse, and then a doctor. They leave their bodies and you're there. And it's just come to me. It happens that way. I think I've even said this here before. Somehow I'm not in the last few years, interestingly, but before, people would have cardiac arrests on airplanes. I'd be at the scene of an accident on the roads. Just strange things. I was always around this. But when people were sick and they knew they were going to die, many, many, many times I would hear people say, you know, I'm not really afraid of dying. I'm okay about dying. Pause. I only wish I could live long enough for, and you can fill in the blank. It was their child's wedding or a graduation, or they wanted their pet to go first, or whatever the attachment, as if they were really free other than that. I heard it so often. Now, I could say the same thing. I'm not beyond that. Really being ready to be free, really being ready. It's very complicated. But all of these teachings, everything we're talking about, they really apply best the more sincere we are. And not sincere, because we're all sincere, but we're all at a different place on this path. And at some point, we just go, not yet, not now. And we just choose to stay again. And sometimes it's very conscious, and sometimes it's less conscious. So if you're sincere about getting rid of that annoyance, because we're all laughing, but it feels terrible to be annoyed. It's a really off-putting feeling for us when most of us who are here, at least, we actually really want to find inner peace. I would say at least, because Swamiji said that's the first, right? Almost the easiest of the 8 attributes of the divine to attain, inner peace. We want that for sure. We all probably want a little more than that, but definitely. But it's not peaceful to be annoyed at all. And you know, I don't know if you, it would be very helpful. I did this with Portland, and I don't know how many of you were there. Several of you were. But we took a course that we had offered in Palo Alto, which was a book study of Swamiji's Secrets of Emotional Healing. You know, those little books, and they're so rich, unbelievably rich. And we did the course in Palo Alto, and then years later, several years later, we did it for about 1.5 years with Portland. So it's available, and it's available on the Palo Alto website somewhere. But you can go back, you can find it, you can watch it. Because Swamiji, I don't think annoyance is one of the 30, but it might be, I could be forgetting. But everything else would help. It was a really deep dive, right? I mean, those of you who were there, a very deep dive into 1 or 2 sentences that Swamiji wrote about each emotion. And he shows us the spiritual path, the thread, the way, anger, fear, greed, annoyance, whether it was there or not, you would find it out of it. And it's really helpful to watch that class series, because those 30 things are at the core of every wrong turn that we make. That's the thing. The whole of the spiritual path is A, in that little book, but B, in each secret, the whole of the path. It's such utter perfect genius what he did. It's hard to describe. So, I mean, to listen to that course. So whatever the annoyance is, I'm annoyed because A, B, C, D, doesn't matter. We'll always find things to be annoyed about. We could probably make your list from 3 to 300 if we went around this room. But the point is, if you're serious about wanting to let it go, the minute you see it happening, stop. Bring your attention to the point between the eyebrows. Put on a chant. Say a prayer. Start an affirmation. Get your energy uplifted. I mean, it's this song. It's the devil. And we have to bring in light. We can't beat it up with a stick. I love that saying of Masters. It's not a saying, it's a teaching. When he says a room can be in darkness for thousands of years. I mean, think about it. But the instant you bring in a light, he says, the darkness disappears. Well, that's true about everything in our life. So it's a great teaching. Darkness, fear, darkness, greed, darkness, jealousy, darkness, annoying. Bring in the light. That's why the song was so perfect today, really. Yeah, so thank you for that.
So this question is spurred by the story that you just told earlier about the woman who received the heart transplant and made her way inexplicably to the man who had been married to the donor. The topic of organ donation has been in the news more than I'd ever seen it recently, with, I guess, some scandals about people's organs being...
I just read that this morning.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about it.
Oh, good.
It popped up on my phone and it got my attention.
Well, perfect, because...
I read it. Yeah, so go ahead.
Because this has been on my mind a lot. I mean, people are abandoning their organ donation registry, listings by the thousands, and it's becoming a crisis, according to, those in the field. And from the moment that I became a driver, I made myself an organ donor, and I always felt like, it's the ultimate recycling, which I'm very passionate about anyway. And I've always felt comfortable about that. And then I'm finding out that goes against Swami's counseling, that goes against so many other teachings about the pitfalls of allowing one's life force to enter another person. And so it's just really brought up a lot of conflict. And I don't know whether it's my ego that's saying, I'm still going to make myself available if it's appropriate, or whether that's just my karma to do that. But I'd love to hear more about what your thoughts are.
Let me say before I answer that first of all, that was not what I was reading this morning, which I can comment on later, but, and I didn't know. I'm sure that most people are not changing their minds because they're disciples of Yogananda who said that. Swamiji was just relaying, and I heard Swamiji several times say, Master said, it's not good to. And it's a dilemma for me, too, in a way, because we all want to do good things. And if you live to get old enough, it becomes less of a dilemma, because who wants kidneys or eyes or anything this age? Seriously, but it's much more of a dilemma the younger you are. So at the human and humanly compassionate level, I get what you're up against. And thinking of it as recycling is interesting, sort of. it helps me feel a little less strongly about it when I think of aluminum cans. I recycle all the time, but I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but it's interesting. And, you know, I don't know what I never heard, and if Lakshmi ever heard it, or anybody in the room, please say exactly why Master, the why of that. I've heard repeatedly that he said it, and as soon as I heard that, I changed my driver's license, just because that's discipleship to me. I mean, I would trust that. Now, that's personal. That's where I am with my discipleship. If Yogananda said, don't let them take your organs, then I think, but please correct me, anybody, if you know.
Shanti, what I remember is Swami saying that the problem is that organ donation has to happen very quickly. You harvest, you take the organ from the person who has
This is right, I've heard this
has
too.
died, and for the donor who has just passed, there's a period of time that the soul is moving, transitioning, and he said it would be very confusing and make it difficult if that donor soul, who now doesn't have a body but is also quite confused about part of their body being invaded and part of it being taken away, and making that transition to the astral plane. He said that was the issue.
Thank you. I remember that too. Now that you say it, I even remember reading that Swamiji said that. It's true. So it was more, because it does have to happen quickly. And him saying, so I'm just saying it out loud for everybody again, but what Lorna said is exactly right, that it's confusing to the soul. So that either has to satisfy you enough in a way that you could live by that, or not. That will not be the first thing that our teachers have said to us, that it's hard to live by, but that's the decision. As I said, as soon as I heard it, I changed, because what do I know? I don't remember leaving this body before. So that fact that this is such a quick stop for the body, but the soul has this long journey to be on, and we want to give our soul the best possible opportunity to make its progress and to do well. Thank you for that. I don't know why that had left my mind, but yeah. So I don't know if that, you don't look like it's convincing.
Well, no, it's just giving me more information.
But more information, yeah, fair enough. And I think that's all we can do. And I mean it. I don't want to make light of this. I wish I could live by everything that they wanted for me, and I don't, is the truth. So I have no judgment about it. I think, first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're living in tune the best we can with what feels right and positive and uplifting for us. So no judgment at all, whatever. But Joanne.
No, just a comment quickly. That I don't think Swami ever said, was telling anybody not to do it. That he was saying, this is your decision. This is what I am essentially sharing and suggesting, but I'm not telling you not to do it.
Did you hear him say that?
I know I did not, but that was the impression I got from, otherwise, it's almost like, don't make too many rules, he wasn't, imposing a rule around that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true of everything on our path, isn't it? Even to be a vegetarian or anything that we say. What they're saying to us is, here's the highest way to go, and then do what you need to do. But with no judgment. And I think it's really what surrender is saying, and what I'm saying. So no judgment, but he also said it's harder for the departing soul. So, but thank you. This is all good, because I didn't have this. Joanne?
So then, what I'm hearing with giving blood, if you're perfectly healthy, that's something that's really shouldn't be an issue, because you're not dying. It's a little confusing to me, but I'm taking it that, hey, this is something that's good, that's not going to injure my soul, and is going to help somebody else.
I think that, but again, I feel like I'm outside of my league here in terms of if Master were here or Swamiji, what would they say? Swamiji had to have received blood, actually, because he had open heart surgery. So I'm sure he received blood even. So I just don't know, and I don't want to, and they're not telling me right now, so. No, actually, I mean, nothing's coming that's that clear, and I want to be very thoughtful when I say anything that they said or implied, that it's true, because neither Master nor Swamiji, they didn't speak lightly. There was no fluff, as you know. So when they said anything, we all listened. Everybody, we're reading it carefully, we're listening. So I don't know. I've given blood, and I don't now for a lot of reasons, but not anything like that. I still feel like it's a great thing to do. But again, it's not costing you your life. It's interesting to think about this, how much energy we share. Now that we know so much more, what happens when our blood goes into somebody else? It's a fascinating question to ask. But I, Shanti Rubenstone, think it's a good thing to do, but I don't know. I've never heard ever anything else about blood. Surendra, you didn't have anything about blood that you heard? He's not hearing me, yeah. Surendra, did you ever hear anything about blood donation? No. Okay, good, yeah. Sorry, I don't have a clear answer to that, but.
I have a new question, if that's all right.
Perfect.
I would love your thoughts on that, what feels like a very delicate balance between discernment and judgment. And that, if there's, let's say, example, somebody in your life that is doing or behaving in a way that, isn't what you would like for them, doesn't seem the highest best. But how to be discerning in that, maybe how to deal with that in our life, it's situational, of course, but how much distance you can create with somebody like that. But then also how not to go into judgment. It's very tricky.
It is. It's incredibly tricky. One of the things that I was thinking about when I was reading that, I joked about it before, but it stopped me when I read that. I know that I've seen it before, but not for a while, and it's very powerful. This is a response that Swamiji had to, who would you say is a true renunciate? And it's almost like you have to be free. And you're asking that question, which of course I know you know, that's so subtle. It's in that list. People who never have any judgment. In about 5 different ways he says you would be a true renunciate if you were perfectly clear about that, in essence. But for those of us who are not perfectly clear all the time, and because it's difficult, this is a really interesting thing. I remember many years ago, I was meeting with, is my mic still on? Okay. I thought I suddenly lost that sense that it's there. With a very dear friend who was also a leader by title is what I mean. There are many leaders in our community, but also a colony leader type person. And we had gone out and we had a meal that lasted about 3 hours, and we were talking about, gee, this person's having this problem, or this one is a problem, or, really speaking that way as leaders and wondering, what will we do about it? Because if we're honest, it comes up. We're trying to lead a whole colony, and then we all come in, everybody comes in with our personalities. We have these personalities, and we have to say, what is the best way of handling this so that the whole colony is not disrupted over somebody's anger issue or really pushing for things to be other than how they are, or just somebody who's always complaining, whatever it is. I mean, we all know there are people like that. They just have to see what's wrong, and it's complicated. It's very complicated. You want to support each person. Anyway, we were together for 3 or 4 hours, and we were like, each person, we hadn't seen each other for a while. We were trying to get through this together. And finally, I said, God, I just feel like here we are for these hours with all of this gossip, judgment. That's what it was feeling like. And she said to me, that's not what this is. And it really helped me. I mean, she said, we're observing them. We're not judging it. We're not being critical in that way, personally critical, but we're being critical in terms of critical thinking, like how to get through a situation one by one by one. I think for me, because it was hours and it was adding up, it was hard, each person, but you have a huge, big colony and 800 or so people, and that can happen pretty easily. And either one of us would have spent time in fact, with any of those people in a very supportive and compassionate way, but there were still issues that were being created. So I feel that, and I feel this now as a colony leader, as a spiritual director, manager, in this position, being asked to be by these teachers in a position of guiding a work in a certain way. It's not that I feel like that's better than any other job, but it is a job. Or it can be personal. It can be with your own children or your partners, or, I mean, anything. But if we can have ourselves observe the truth, which is what she was saying to me. This is 20 years ago that conversation happened, but it was important. No, we need to take an honest look and see what's going on. Nobody asked us to get stupid or to get blind in all of life. Whatever we do, we have to be able to be honestly observing. But if we can stop that shy of the judgment coming in, and I feel, I don't know how everybody else feels, I sort of know instantly when that's happening. I don't always honor it, because sometimes I feel entitled. I mean, I'm saying this out loud, but it doesn't feel exactly. I'm not saying I'm entitled to be angry. I'm saying in my deepest vrittis, right in my inner spine, there's still a part of me that wants to be able to be a little judgmental at times, or something that's not the best for my spiritual well-being, and that it is not being part of the solution, which is so important on our path. That statement that Swamiji kept making to us, that, you know, when he talks about being solution-oriented, that might even be on that list. I can't remember. It's coming up a lot recently for me in talks in different ways. It's so important. If we're not part of the solution, we're not far from being part of the problem. And I know that's not a great answer because it's so subtle what you're asking about. I don't think we're ever asked to give up being a discerning being. And I think it's fair to look, and I know certain people resist this. I watch it, like I'll say to a coworker or somebody, you know, this person's having a problem and I'm concerned about it. I'll notice something about somebody. And I can feel certain people tense up. They don't want to even notice what's happening that's difficult. I don't think it's good leadership to ignore those things. But I don't think it's good leadership to judge it or to have a negative, or it's leadership I'm talking about, but as a human being. Am I making myself clear? Is this clear, Pete? Is it at all addressing what you were asking? Okay, because I mean, you can ask the next question. I can feel like I'm AI, just keep asking. I mean, we're all being taught to do that now, but no, I mean it to get more clear about exactly where you want to go, but that's what first comes to my mind. That is, and it would be for you because you are who you are. It just starts getting more and more subtle, those delineations. But if we pay attention, as soon as the judgment comes, we know it, we're away from discernment. And it's not good for us.
I just wanted to add that I have on my wall a quote from Swami that I try to look at every day. And he said, negative criticism always seeks to destroy.
Yeah.
And that helps me in that question of what is discerning, what is critical thinking or awareness of this issue or this problem or this behavior, and if it's a feeling of wanting to destroy that behavior or to in some way negate it, then that falls under negative criticism.
Yeah.
If it's solution consciousness, then it's about how do I support, how do I help them move in a positive direction, how do I deal with this in a positive way? Then it's upward.
Or, thank you, Lorna. Or I also feel sometimes we just have to remove ourselves from a situation. That just happens. There really is a problem, and we have no effective way of helping it. That's also a very important observation. But that's a very good saying, I mean, to keep around. These are really challenging issues, you know, that we bring up because, you know, I often tell people, ask me, how can I seek spiritual counsel from somebody when I know that they too have their own ego, their own egoic baggage that they're carrying. But we all do. We all do. And I remember Swamiji once said, none of you are free. But if you find somebody, he said, who's been on the path even several more years than you, and you feel at all inclined, listen to them, just because they've been around. But the thing that I've added for people who ask me that, which I think is, it's like relative to this, is who are those people that you feel you can trust, that are consciously, when they're with you, trying to get their ego out of the way so that they're not answering your problem about themselves, but rather genuinely with you and trying to help you see what's next best for you. Not because they might not get tripped up over that, because we can't find those people. There are shockingly few people on all of, if you look all over the Ananda world, there are thousands of great souls and hundreds of leaders who are remarkable, but they're not free. we're not free until we're free. I mean, Master says that exactly. So as long as we're not, something can grab us. But does that person take the time, find the energy, which I do think is relevant to your original question, to say, let me put my ego aside and see what can come to me? Because that also is the only way intuitive answers can come, which is, what is discernment? Really, we're trying to be intuitive. We're not trying to discern with our egos. Not us. That's not how we would define it. So to get outside of our egos, and we just try and do the best we can when we're with friends, or, I mean, it's true for any of us. If we're trying to help a friend or anybody, put yourself aside. What is happening for them, really for them? Where are they? I mean, we all laughed, but it's even why I asked before, Vaj, what is the question? What is your question? Let me make sure I'm answering your question and not one of the other 15 questions that could have come out of that. And it was funny, but not like serious about that. I have a question from Adam. Is this a time to answer? Adam asked me last night if I would address this, and he would watch it later. And it was actually a very interesting question. It was sort of a quirky question in a way, but instantly I knew it was meaningful. He asked me about placebo-based studies and things, like, is it irresponsible or wrong? He said it feels like a trickster to give somebody a placebo when you're doing a study or offering medicine. He didn't like that idea, I think. Unfortunately, he can't tell me right now if I heard it correctly. But a couple of interesting things came to me about it, so I wanted to just say it for him and for us. I don't talk about this stuff much anymore because we've all come so far now, but in the early days of trying to talk about energy, and particularly out in the world, I had this slew of studies and stories that were true about trying to show everybody how much words, thoughts have energy. Let me just say that. I meant to read how Swamiji said it in his affirmation book this morning in the preface, but I forgot to read it, so I didn't, so bear with me. But I mean, I know what it is, but he, of course, said it so beautifully. But how important our thoughts are in terms of what we manifest in our lives and how we live. So that was the point. Thoughts, we put energy behind our thoughts, we put it into words as these affirmations, and we repeat them. So the more we say, for instance, within me lies the energy to accomplish all that I will to do. Very powerful statement. Says we already have the energy to do everything we want to do. Behind my every act lies God's infinite power. That is a powerful affirmation. It says you can never say, I can't, because it's not true. It's an untruth to say that. Within me, within every one of us, lies the energy to accomplish all that we will to do. Whatever you choose to do, if you genuinely choose it again, you can do it. You can. You are energy. We are. That's what Swamiji called that whole chapter in the Raja Yoga book. We are energy. That wasn't just some cute saying. We're energy. Energy doesn't get tired. It doesn't run out. It's infinite. Imagine that. If we had right attitude, we would never need to sleep. We would never need to eat. That's what some of these great saints have shown us, because that's a truth. We may not be living it, but it's the truth. Okay, so we do these affirmations because we want to remind, we want to get all of our thoughts and our laziness and our unconsciousness out of the unconscious up all the way into the superconscious. So we do affirmations, we do many things. Well, there have been studies that have been done that show, for instance, you can give two groups of syrup of ipecac. Do you know what that is? It's medicine that we give that makes people throw up. And it makes you throw up violently. And we would do that if somebody took any kind of poison or an overdose, and it saved many lives. And it's 100%, that's what it does. However, they did a study, and they took two groups of people. One, they told them what they were going to be taking. The other, they said, this is a delicious tasting syrup, and it has all of these vitamins and minerals in it, and it's very good for you. And those people did not vomit. They did not vomit. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Now, we could say, what a terrible study to do. They used to, these studies, though, there's a side of them that's a little cruel. I could see where Adam was coming from. But they make a very strong point that we try and live by on this path. There was another study, I remember these, I can't remember all of them because it was 40 years ago that I was giving these talks. But another study where they gave mice chemotherapy in pineapple juice or something. I don't remember what the juice was. And the chemo would make them sick all the time. So something that would make them sick. Then later, they would give the mice plain pineapple juice, and the mice would get just as sick. Our minds are so powerful. Our ability to be swayed or changed by what we believe, by what we affirm. We use it in a very positive way. So when Adam asked me that question last night, I thought, placebo, there's ethical questions about placebo studies for many reasons. That's not what we're talking about today, but just for instance, a drug's really effective and only half the people are getting it. Fortunately, many of the people who are running the studies will stop the study then and saying, this drug is too good. We don't want to withhold it from 50% of people. But there's a lot of ethical questions. But there's also a lot of good reason why you might use placebo at times, not the least of which is that we can convince people of many things and of many healing sides to certain things, just like you see in those studies. It's unimaginable that those women didn't throw up when they were given Ipecac, but they didn't. I remember the whole study. But how conditioned we get. We're so easily conditioned. So I think the idea of placebo can show us how strong the mind can be and how to positively use that aspect of the mind if we bring it now all the way around to spiritual teachings, because I'm not answering questions about, what's the word I want? Ethics. Ethics, exactly, thank you. That's not what I'm doing here today. I'm saying, let's think about how to use this on a spiritual path. So the fact that we can see the power of placebos and of telling people something other than what's true, but we watch how powerful it is, we can use that to our own good spiritually. I would say that question and some of the answers that came up really points to the power of these affirmations. We were supposed to read these affirmations on Sunday and then say them all week. Now, I'm not going to ask you this, but if I said, raise your hand if you say the affirmation then every day of the week, probably very few of us would, be raising our hands. But they're really powerful. And I know a lot of people who get very tired easily, who feel there's a lot they can't accomplish. I mean, we all do. But just saying that affirmation, which I have had on my refrigerator literally for decades, because I really wanted to know the truth of it. We could say it for every affirmation in the affirmation book. They're beautiful. But because in this life, I was always finding myself doing a huge amount on any given day, I had to believe that I had the energy to do it. I couldn't be one of these people who gets tired at 7 or who needed 10 hours sleep, or just wasn't my life. So I had to remember that I am energy. And it works. It works. If any of us practice an affirmation like that. So I felt, Adam, I would just say to you, I could see how your mind could go, that's not fair, we're tricking people, it's awful. But it's sort of a necessary evil in a way to do good studies, and we could turn it around and use it to our benefit. So anyway, I wanted to answer that.
Any questions? No.
So I read today that, I think I read this, somebody here probably knows, that Trump was going to send the National Guard to Portland.
Yeah, I read that too.
So I was wondering where should we go with that?
It's a very complicated time in our lives, isn't it? Particularly as devotees, it's complicated. I just have to be honest about this, really struggled with a lot of what's going on in the world right now. I'm sure we all have, but I'm saying it to you to say, I can't honestly say I'm just above all of this, or beyond it. And yet, I do feel that I need to keep affirming that above and beyond, that it's important, first of all, as a spiritual teacher, I feel it's very important for me to be available to anybody, no matter what their politics, what their thoughts. So given that, if I express my thoughts, whether I'm far to the right or far to the left, it leaves out a group of people who then, so I'm just saying this is a dilemma. I think I read it, and maybe some of you feel really great about that, and forgive me if you do. I'm not thrilled that he's sending National Guard into Portland, or that he sent it to other cities. I think there's other ways of dealing with some of the issues. There's definitely issues. I would probably strive to use other means first. Having said that, given where we are, they will come. We know that now. This is not the first city. It's going to work. They're going to be here. And I think that the only way that we can be not just part of the solution in an immediate way, like here, but recognizing, because this is truth, that every thought we have, every action we take, every decision that we make, every one of us, it affects the world. It's hard to imagine that we have that much power, but we are a part of all that is. That's the truth. So it's not our ego saying we're that powerful. It's the truth of the state of consciousness that we are. And there was always that seemingly silly analogy that was stated for years, but it's the truth, that if you took one drop of water out of the ocean, every molecule of water has to rearrange itself. And it seems almost impossible, but it's the truth. If you remove a drop, everything has to adjust. We have the ability to have a profound effect on the whole world around us. So I think as devotees and as being true to our path, we have a responsibility to be as positive. I don't mean saying, oh, this is wonderful positive, not like that, but to stay on a positive, creative, spiritually uplifted, solution-oriented side of this. Again, if we're going to follow these gurus, that's what we have to do. Remember, they lived through world wars. When somebody went to Anandamoy Ma, one of her devotees, people know this story, and said, why don't you stop the war? I know you have the power to stop this war during the Second World War. The Second World War, how many millions of people died? I don't know the answer to that, but 20 million at least, probably more. I don't know, but huge, huge numbers of people. And she just sat there very calmly, and she said, do you not think that the God who created all of this knows how to take care of it? That was a hard answer to swallow, really. I'll say it out loud to you. I'm Jewish. I was born and raised Jewish, a practicing Jew in an all-Jewish area. A lot of my family barely just got out from Eastern Europe. I know everything about what happened during the Second World War. I know a lot about the Second World War, but particularly in terms of concentration camps and what was happening. The entire European population of Jewish people was decimated. The entire European population. Imagine that. And then she's saying, God knows what he's doing. Hard. As a little human being, very hard. Does that make it less true? No. So not much looks like it's making sense right now. And I bet no matter which side of these arguments you're on, you would share that feeling. I bet if you were really strongly pro-Trump, you feel, as he does, that things are so out of whack and really need to be fixed, and this is the way to fix them. And you believe that as strongly as somebody who's on the left, who's feeling like we have a dictator, the next dictator coming up. And we've seen what happens, and what could we do about it? But I feel if Ananda could stay calm, stay uplifted, pray, not just for the people of Portland, but you know who's the second person I pray for every single morning when I pray, every morning? Donald Trump. We have to do that. We have to believe. Otherwise, it's just a joke that we're living, that meditation matters, that prayers matter, that pouring our heart's love out into the world matters, that praying for those National Guardsmen, a large percentage of them could be sick about coming here. They're in the National Guard for many different reasons. Maybe they don't want to come. Imagine what's being asked of them. But even the ones who want to come, I don't know how many of you, I'm not going to remember the book or the woman's name or much, but you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's all African names in it. I can't hold them. And if you remember, tell me if anybody does. But there's a woman who was part of the Rwandan genocide that went on.
Immaculate.
Immaculate, yeah. And she wrote she wrote her story. She's been all over television. She works for the United Nations, or she did. I don't even know if she's still alive, but anyway, great soul, an amazing soul. But that was this fight between the Tutus and the, who? Tutsis. Yeah, two tribal origin of people in Rwanda. And she was from a very deeply religious Catholic and very high family. Her father was the most highly regarded man in their city. Everybody came to him. He had some very high government position, but also spiritually very well loved. Her brothers, the whole family, very good family. And then this genocide, the war broke out, and she went into hiding in a bathroom. Maybe some of you know this, with I think 4 other women or 5 other women. A minister, a priest, put him, he had a hole in the wall, put them in the bathroom, and then put a huge piece of furniture there, praying that if the enemy came in, they wouldn't find it. People did this all during the Second World War. Countless thousands of Jewish lives were saved this way, countless, by these brave souls. But the women that were in there for 4 or 5 months, they couldn't all sit down at the same time. Nobody could lay down. They had to be standing in this bathroom, and there was just one window that was high, so nobody could see in it, but they could hear. And she listened as her brother was killed brutally. It was all brutal. He was decapitated. They cut his head in half, the top half. And they were screaming, "Now how smart, let's look at your brains," and saying his name. She's inside knowing. And she's just praying to Christ, praying to Christ, praying to Christ. She was devastated. She never quit praying. And Christ came to her in that bathroom. And she said, "How could you be doing this?" And he looked at her and he said a phrase that we've all heard, "These are all my children. I love every one of them." He didn't say all this now, "This is me," but this is what he meant. They are where they are. They're deluded. They're out of their mind. They haven't lived as many lives as you. They're not as far along a spiritual path as you are. But they're all part of me. They're coming home. They all want to come home. And it's my job to shine that light, let my magnetism be in the world so that they can hardly resist it. I mean, I'm adding a lot of his words, but that was his life. That's how he lived. And we are, in fact, wanting to be Christ-like. So I want you to know, I really struggle with this. I really do. I wonder. I grew up in the age where we demonstrated. I put my life on the line on the Capitol grounds, literally, many times for women's lib because of the Vietnam War, for racial equality. I lived in D.C. during all of that. And every once in a while, I say to myself, when? When do we start demonstrating again? When do we take all of this power and do something else with it? But I am committed to following my teachers' way, these teachers, those teachers. I'm committed to it. And I just feel like, okay, then we have to bring as much positive, loving energy as we possibly can and believe that it will have an impact. We have to believe that. We have to do it with that kind of belief. And I don't know, I'm not sure it's going to happen in my life, but it'll happen in some of your lives. And, I just want to share this one more thing. I didn't say it last night. I don't know when we were supposed to stop already. Is it okay to just take 5 or 10 more minutes? I asked, this is very unusual for me because I'm one of the rare people in the world, I'm sure, who doesn't love the ChatGPT generated answers to things that we get. You know, I think you have to do a lot of work to make them not sound like ChatGPT. But if I'm clear with myself and honest, there's a massive amount of wonderful information there. And ChatGPT can do, I mean, AI can just do amazing and important and meaningful things. But I don't use it a lot. But yesterday morning, I asked it, generate a talk that says, that talks about healing during Dwapara Yuga. I asked it that. Now, I didn't tell you any of what it said last night. That was all me, so I take full responsibility. But one of the things that it did that was so fascinating to me, it talked all about the yugas, and it talked about what happens as we transition from one yuga to the next. We all know there's a big transitional period. We're in one of those. But it talked about the main things that could happen, and to the point, shockingly, they're happening for us right now. This is like has to happen as we go from yuga to yuga. It has to. It's in the planets and the stars and the, you know, all of the magnetism and where the sun is drawing these things out of people. So this transition from Kali Yuga to Dwapara Yuga, I mean, it said things like, I'm trying to remember right now, there will be a lot more attention paid to, sorry, there's a word for it that I want to get. Let me just think for 1 second. I can't, I'm sorry, so I'm not going to say it as well. But to people who remember abuse and people who grow up, and there's a word for the type of therapy and all of, and it's what's blossoming right now. It's absolutely happening. And ChatGPT said, this has to happen during this transition. There has to be political unrest. I mean, so many things that it talked about that were like, this is a given in this transition. And my mouth looked like Gita's did a little bit ago. It's amazing. So what we're going through was predictable, was a given. God himself knows all about this. He didn't forget about us. And it has to happen. Now, that doesn't answer how we interact with it, and I'm aware of that. When do we start demonstrating again? When do we do that side of it? I don't know. But for right now, we're being asked to bring that part of us that's, I was going to say mother, but that's not true because we need our strength. We're trying to bring that perfected place, a blend of very, very elevated male and female qualities into the world. And I think that's all I can say in a way, yeah. All right, friends, kept you late. Yeah, thank you for being here and coming with all of these beautiful questions. And yeah, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you this evening, this afternoon, for a wonderful Kriya. I'm really looking forward to it. So, very sacred time for us.